does not tell us who you are. Every event or anyone who rejects you does not know who you are. Rejection means redirection. Rejection means projection. Rejection means protection. Every event of rejection you come across protects you towards your destiny. Welcome back to Eagles Impacts. This is Eddie Murphy. Today I want to talk about rejection. Rejection is something that applies to our everyday life. It is something that happens to us in our everyday attempts, either in the area of trying to become more or in the area of trying to be involved. In almost every aspect of our life, rejection likely almost inevitable. And this is the fact. And most people will always give you this kind of stereotype expression, tell you rejection sucks. Of a truth, rejection sucks. But here are a few things they will never tell you about rejection. Let me quickly tell you a story. My grandmother told me those days during the days by moonlight. My grandmother told me some time ago this story about a certain prince from a very rich kingdom. So at the point in the life of this young prince, he wanted to marry. And the father wanted to organize some of the most beautiful girls in the community, that he could choose one of them that will become his wife. But this prince have a different ideas entirely. So the prince wanted to get a wife for himself, and he decided that he would travel to a certain community whereby nobody knew anything about him. He got a strategy and he decided to stick to it. The prince traveled to this very community and disguised himself as a random person in the community. When he arrives in the community, he began to approach every girl he could set his eyes on. And trust me, every lady he approached, they would turn him down. When they look at him with the way he dressed and with the way he sang, they would turn his offer down. This prince continued this for some couples of days until he finally come across a lady who decided to marry him. And when the date of the wedding came, everybody was surprised to realize who this guy that has been rumbling in the city looking for the wife to marry. Everybody was surprised who he is. It was the prince of one of the most richest kingdom that have ever lived. And here is the thing. During the time these girls were rejecting his proposal, he felt sorry for himself. He never had this kind of crummy feelings like feeling dirty or feeling being rejected or feeling being secluded. But each time he was being rejected, he always felt sorry for the situations. Everyone that rejected him, he always felt sorry for them, because here is one thing that is involved. They never knew who he is. He always laughed at every event of rejection that he was coming across. Because one thing was this, he always believed if they had known who he is, they could not have rejected him. They rejected him because they have no idea of his personality. And this helped him to survive all his rejection. Here is my point. Rejection often occurs when the event or the person that rejects you have no knowledge of who you are. And the rejection hurts you the most when you have no knowledge of your own personal value. And this is when rejection ripples down your emotion and disorganizes every single part of your system that constitutes happiness. Rejection does not tell us who you are. Rejection is just an event of an opinion. It's an event whereby people tells you this is what they think about you. And oftentimes what most people think about you is not true. It's what you tell yourself that is true about you. People only give their opinion. We don't want you because we think you are not good enough. Then what do you tell yourself? I accepted I am not really good enough. This is when rejection hurts you the most. Your perception towards rejection is what dictates how your reactions towards it looks like. When you don't have the right perception to handle rejection, you will always be disorganized with rejection. The event of rejection have just one message for you, and this is, you are not good enough. And each time we come across or we encounter the event of rejection, when we don't have the right perspective to deal with it, it can destroy who we are as a person. And this is what I've come to realize about rejection. And that this is what most people will never tell you about rejection. Rejection of a truth is not what most of us think it is. Let me just go straight to the point. Rejection is a redirection. Rejection is protection. Rejection is projection. And I'm going to tell you how this is. Here is the thing. Every event or anyone who rejects you does not know who you are. That is what they did. So when they reject you, they are only giving you their opinion of their own understanding of you. And everyone who is being hurt by rejection, or most of us that happen to feel so hurt about rejection, we did for this one reason. Because we don't know who we are as well. I don't know if you try to get a picture. The events that rejects you or the person that rejects you don't know who you are. That is why they did. And this event of rejection hurts us or you the most because you that is being rejected don't actually have an idea of who you are. Rejection hurts us the most when we have no knowledge of our own personal value. When we have no knowledge of who we are. It's a crash of lack of knowledge of identity of both of the event that reject us and of we that is being rejected. When you know who you are as a person, you handle rejection differently. Rejection is simply a redirection. Rejection is a projection. Rejection is a protection. When you have this perception of rejection, you handle your rejection differently. Think about it. When you look at where you are standing today, when you look at the life you're living today, you will realize most of the events of rejection you have encountered in the past have redirected you to where you are today. They've protected you to find yourself in where you are today. They've projected you to find yourself in where you are today, either in the area of relationship or in the area of employment or in the area of business. If you have never been rejected by most of those companies you have encountered in the past, perhaps you could have this employment that you are so happy with today. Perhaps if you have not been fired from those previous jobs where you have worked before, perhaps you could have gotten the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, of setting up your own business today. And think about the relationship aspects. If those ladies have not rejected you, or if those men have not rejected you, perhaps you could have been in this relationship that is making you happy today. So you can see that rejection is not what we think it is. Rejection is not what rejection is trying to signal to us that it is. Almost every event of rejection is trying to make us feel we are not good enough. It's just an opinion. This is the opinion of every event of rejection. No knowledge of who you are, you accept every suggestion and every opinion of everyone of every event that you have come across. But when you have an idea of who you are, the opinion of other people don't matter. The opinions of every event that you have come across don't matter. Rejection is not what we think it is when we come across it. Every event of rejection tries to make us feel we are not good enough. Try to give us the stigma of low self-esteem, if at all we are being given any at all. But rejection makes redirection. Rejection means projection. Rejection means protection. Every event of rejection you come across protects you towards your destiny. It protects you towards what God has in stock for you. It protects you and redirects you towards what God has installed in your future. Rejection, it doesn't mean you are not good enough. Rejection doesn't mean you are not good enough. Rejection means redirection. And when you have this kind of perception towards every event of rejection, either the one you have come across in the past or the one that you're definitely going to come across in the future, you will handle your rejection differently. Know who you are as a person. Don't underestimate your value as a person. Rejection does not mean you are not good enough. It's just an opinion from other people or from an event or from a body. This is just an opinion. If you've been rejected in any event, it doesn't mean you are not good enough. It means you have been protected. Let me give you an example of my own experience with rejection. Because when I look at where I am today, I give thanks to what I have been through. I happen to experience one of the worst form of rejection from my own perception. I dealt with biological rejection, which is something I can't think is a bit different from the normal social rejection that we experience on our day. If you have been rejected from a particular job, chances that there are so many alternative jobs that you could seek for. If you are being rejected by a guy or by a lady or whatever, I still think there are so many other alternatives of that similar object. Here is the thing, my own kind of rejection was my father denying me not to be my father or not to be his son. My grandmother told me when my mother realized she was pregnant, she told my father she was pregnant. I think that very day, my father denied me. He told my mom, I'm not the father of this child. I will never be the father of this child. And I'm not going to have anything to do with you, not to do with this pregnancy. And that was my story. So I happened to grow up and I realized I have no father in my life. And at the age of 9, I lost my mom. And I was left alone with just me and my sick aged grandmother. And every single day of my life was telling me how devalued I was. Every single event I encountered in my life tells me who I am. When I go to school, when I'm being driven out of school because I could not afford to pay any of my school fees or school levy, each time I see other children who their parents could fend their bills, their fears, or meet their needs in a classroom. It reminds me of who I was, a rejected child. And I always cried. Had it been, I had a father now, I could have been in the classroom like every other kids. Had it been my mother were to be alive, maybe I could have been in the classroom with every other kids who are sitting down listening to what the teacher has to say. At the point in my life, I was living with so much pain. And when my grandmother realized what I was going through, she as well could not handle it anymore. She decided to take the issue to the community. And the kinsmen, the elders in the community, they summoned a meeting where they would decide what will happen to me if my father, or where they will ask my father why he hasn't been taking care of me as they instructed him. Trust me, on this very fateful day, everyone in the community gathered. The whole place was filled up, and I was just standing by my grandma, and I saw my father and the parents were standing on the other side. And the kinsmen, the community men, the elders in the community, they asked my father to step out. And my father stepped out, and they asked my father, here is my grandmother here, and this boy, Eddie. And we have told you to take care of this boy after last time we had a meeting like this. Now I'm about to hear the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. My father stepped outside boldly and told the community men and everybody that gathered in that meeting. He repeated what he had repeated to them when I was born many years ago. He told them, and he quoted the date and the day, and he told them, I've told you then, and I'm still going to repeat it again now. This boy is not my child. He can never be my child. I'm not his father, and I will never be his father. And I will never, and I mean never, assume any responsibility over this boy. You know what happened? I was like, if the earth could open and swallowed me up, that could have been the best thing that would happen to me that very day. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I just have to stand and face the reality. I wept. I was feeling so crummy, and I don't even know how to describe how I felt. In the public, in the midst of the entire community, I was once reduced to nothing. Most of my friends then, they never knew, although they have been told I had no father, my father rejected me, but they have no idea how the event happened. And sometimes when I'm playing with my friends in the playground or in school, each time we have a little bit of misunderstanding between each other. Kids will always look for the right word to spike you, and they will always call me bastard. Because of these words they always used to describe me, I've always seen myself trying to stay away from any forms of drama that would trigger these people to remind me of who I was. And this very day, my father has actually made it clear to those who who have only heard of it, but they never really know if it was true. My father actually really confirmed it before each and everyone in the community that I am not his son and he's not my father. And how this means I have no father. I went home that very day, rejected, and I felt I don't even deserve to live. If nobody want to have me, if my mother had loved me, he could have stayed. If my father loves me, he could have accepted me. Though my grandmother tried to encourage me, my grandmother always told me, I'm your father, I'm your mother. But little can she be able to do for me? I was a woman with an acute spinal cord disorder. And today, when I look back and see how much my rejection have projected me, or how much it has redirected me to who I am today and to where I am today, looking into my personal life and into my family life, I feel grateful. Today my father is my best friend. And what makes me to be able to forgive my father easily when my father came to me was because the rejection that he makes me go through, the process he makes me went through, has made me the man I am today, to my family and to the world around me. Perhaps not, I would have been able to encourage you today of what rejection is all about. Rejection does not mean you are not good enough. It is just an opinion of an event or of someone about you, and it is not true. Rejection means redirection. It means projection. It means protection. I love this quote from Mark Twain. He said, we don't get into trouble or we don't suffer because of what we don't know. We only do because of what we know that is not true. Some of the things we suffer are just erroneous knowledge of what is true. We don't get into trouble because of what we don't know. We get into trouble because of what we know that is not true. Most of the things that is making you to lose your self-esteem today are people's opinion that are not true about you. Each time you come across events of rejection, always believe you are being redirected towards what God has in store for you in the future. Always believe you are being projected to what is ahead of you. Always believe you are being redirected towards what is ahead of you. Rejection does not mean you are not good enough. It's just an opinion from people or from an event that happened to you. Rejection truly means redirection toward what is ahead of you. The moment you have this kind of perception towards rejection, you will always handle the rejection differently. Today I want to remind you, and I want to instill this in you, that rejection does not mean you are not good enough. Rejection simply means redirection. Thank you so much for watching this video, and God bless you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I recommend please kindly do so and hit on the notification button, that whenever I have something up here, you will always be notified. Stay blessed and God bless you.
I don't know you anymore.